Superman, Naked Gun, Happy Gilmore, The Fantastic Four, First Steps, Avatar, Fire and Ash, Pride and Prejudice, Attack of the 50 Feet Woman, Lilo and Stitch, I Know What You Did Last Summer, My Best Friend's Wedding 2, The Devil Wears Prada 2, Frankenstein, The Social Network 2, Bend It Like Beckham 2, Wicked for Good, Harry Potter, Freakier Friday, Jurassic World Rebirth, American Psycho, Quiet Place 3, Houseful 5, Dhadak 2, War 2, Son of Sardar 2. These are just some of the sequels and remakes that have captured the cultural zeitgeist of the movie-going audience and film executives of today. We just do not seem to run out of ideas for prequels, sequels and remakes, and honestly, I am bored out of my mind. But why is this all we're getting out of some of the most creative minds that make up the filmmaking industry? Welcome to Popscope. I'm your host Moksha, and we are going to get our hands dirty today by dissecting this trend that is slowly killing the art of storytelling. Is shoving a slew of prequels, sequels and remakes just good business, or is it a sign of creative bankruptcy? It could be both, so stick with me, we're gonna figure this out. Money. I think we should address the elephant in the room. Remakes are bankable for production houses. A franchise or a cult film, say like The Gladiator, always has a built-in fan following. If the first movie did well at the box office, the sequel will only go on to bring additional footfall, ensuring the movie has a good opening. It is also easier to market a sequel, prequel or a remake. You take one iconic dialogue, strut a charismatic actor down the red carpet and reference a crowd favorite scene and you already have people's attention. Currently, Dhadak 2 is running in theatres and has gotten rave reviews. The only thing it shares with Dhadak 1, however, is that the movie tackles similar themes of caste-based oppression. The characters are different, they inhabit different worlds, but by calling it Dhadak 2, the film has already gotten more eyeballs and is being noticed by people who otherwise would not have turned their heads or looked at the film. It is honestly a sad state of affairs if you ask me. Most of us watched the Michael B. Jordan sensation Sinners. It was the movie that defined the cultural discourse for a few months. It got rave reviews and had a great word of mouth. It was original, it had a fresh aesthetic, and it was a crowd favorite. However, it only made a third of what Lilo and Stitch, the live-action reimagining of Disney's animated classic, made at the box office. You can now see how investing in franchise films, remakes, and sequels ensures that the brand identity endures for long term. Eventually, studios diversify and produce merchandise, create theme parks, and come up with other immersive experiences to keep the cash flow going. This has gotten to a point where movies are now being made for toys we once played with as kids. And no, Greta Gerwig's Barbie did not do anything to advance feminism. We now have films like Super Mario Bros. And the Minecraft movie doing great numbers because it looks like the executives will give us almost any recycled story over investing in a new one. They seem to believe that IP that spans generations will bring with it great cultural and commercial weight, and it looks like they're right. But I really just want new stories. And all of this means the studios and the writers' rooms need not spend a lot of time world building. We already have established characters and beloved story arcs, so treading along these lines more often than not promises decent returns. However, if you are craving something new, but not something too new, they will be sure to lure you in with prequels. Be it the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes from the Hunger Games universe, or Furiosa that expands on the character from Mad Max Fury Road, or even House of Dragon. Okay, I'm still pissed at how they butchered the second season, and we should come together to demand from them a better characterization of Alicent. But you get what I'm saying, right? They promise something new in the realm of the familiar, and they add nuance to familiar characters, but also add some new storylines to keep the fan engagement going. Another thing that makes me uncomfortable about prequels in particular is the over-explanation of themes. Literal storytelling that does not leave any space for the audience to make their own interpretations. And this, I feel, underestimates the audience's capability as well, sort of looks down upon them. But the studios alone are not to be blamed for this development. The audience's consumption patterns have also undergone a significant shift thanks to OTT platforms. We just do not go to theatres that often anymore. We only contemplate buying tickets for a movie that boasts of grand set pieces, action sequences, and rich surround sound. Artsy, innovative films, we have Netflix for those, I think is what a lot of us think. But if you look at the case of live action remakes, be it Lion King, Little Mermaid, or even Lilo and Stitch, they barely offer anything new. In fact, they're full of familiar characters and old storylines that all of us are familiar with. However, they do promise a grand spectacle that is seeped in nostalgia. And looks like this formula works as these movies are raking in those numbers. And I don't want to blame just the studios and the audience. The world we currently inhabit is pushing us to seek comfort in nostalgia. There are multiple international conflicts messing with the global economy, and the job market seems ruthless. So I'll not really fault you for wanting to escape into these worlds that promise to offer some respite in moments like these. What these movies do is that they offer an illusion of stability and a sense of identity. So a lot of us feel very comfortable falling back on them when we really want something familiar or comfort. Look at this, for instance. For a generation that grew up on Harry Potter, many millennials and older Gen Z seem to be keen at the prospect of remaking the novels into a show. And somehow, the prospect of using AI in filmmaking only makes the scenario bleak for me. But I guess we have covered the money aspect of this phenomena and just how much a lot of these creative decisions are being driven by business heads who have no expertise or passion for storytelling. The research for this episode only made me appreciate Seth Rogen's portrayal of Matt Remick in the studio so much more, and it rings so much true. I really love pinning the blame on capitalism because, let's be honest, it deserves it. In the current economic order, the logic of profit drives creative decisions. Films are increasingly becoming financial products rather than creative endeavors. In this model, risk is the enemy and originality is risky. So we are stuck in the same old loop of remaking movies that performed well at some point in history. It sort of underscores the belief that all cultural production must pass through a filter of profitability. And I came to this conclusion thanks to Mark Fisher's 2009 book, Capitalist Realism, Is There No Alternative? I consider it my Bible when it comes to researching anything about cultural studies in the modern age. In this book, Fisher argues that the most dangerous consequence of neoliberal capitalism is not just economic inequality, but it is imaginative paralysis. According to him, we're living in a world where we're no longer capable of conceiving something different. He calls this the slow cancellation of the future. Here, innovation is suppressed and cultural artifacts are endlessly recycled, like is the case with prequels, sequels, and remakes. And it does not help that any popular IP in the current entertainment landscape is often set in earlier decades or time periods. Take for instance Stranger Things, The Boys, The Witchers. You get the gist, right? It's almost like we like to reminisce over the lost futures. Our culture right now is sort of haunted by the unfulfilled promises of modernity. We live amid the ruins of what once seemed like a future full of potential. Utopian architecture, radical politics, avant-garde music and film. But those futures never really materialized. So now, the present is built from the materials of the past and shutting the doors to imagining a future that is radical, that is different from our reality. If you take a look at the decades from, say, the 60s to the 90s, these decades were marked by the rapid succession of new styles, each reacting to the styles preceding it and giving birth to new ones. From punk to post-punk, from synth-pop to grunge, from new Hollywood to independent cinema. Each movement sort of represented a claim to the future. But that does not look like it's the case anymore. Styles are no longer replaced, they are revived. A fascination with the past is now repackaged as the new. Take a look at Stranger Things, right? For instance, it does not just represent or reference the 80s, it sort of recreates them. Therefore, it's not just paying homage, it is attempting to resurrect the past. And to Fisher, this indicates a sort of defeatist attitude that is prevalent among the creative minds, an attitude that says that the future is no longer arriving. Climate catastrophe, economic and political crises, and digital overstimulation have only added to this cultural mood of fatigue and helplessness. Instead of imagining new futures, we scroll through the debris of old ones. This rant against creative bankruptcy, though, is not aimed at individuals. It is just to show that the cultural decisions of today are symptom of the system we are living under. Many talented directors struggle to get their original work funded by the studios unless they attach themselves to franchisees or streaming deals. Okay, no, not Martin Scorsese, but a lot of them. It's time we re-examine our biases, patterns and habits too. The loss of creativity is not inevitable, but to reverse it, we must reclaim our capacity to imagine alternatives. Economic alternatives, aesthetic alternatives, political alternatives. We must value disruption over repetition and risk over reassurance. That might mean supporting smaller, riskier films. It might mean rethinking the economics of film production and distribution. Or it might even mean looking outside of Western cultural centers altogether to regions where cinema still has political urgency and is courageous enough to experiment. I think that Iranian wave of cinema is indicative of this, and we should probably look at that more. Hollywood today may be caught in a loop of creative bankruptcy, but cinema as an art form remains full of possibility. Around the world, filmmakers continue to challenge narrative conventions, resist commercial pressures and invent new forms of storytelling. Their work may not dominate the box office or top streaming charts, but it gestures towards a future where storytelling is not just content, but a force that ushers transformation. Moving on to recommendations. I wouldn't call these recommendations because I don't think I'd like to recommend them, but what I'm watching rather, and don't analyze my, psychoanalyze my patterns, but like everyone on the internet, I too am tuned into The Summer I Turned Pretty. Would I recommend it? Not particularly, but can I look away? Also no. It's a nice breezy rom-com show that is making me cringe occasionally, so what's not really to like, right? But in my quest to, watch independent filmmakers, I also watched the Filippo brothers' Bring Her Back. This is a supernatural psychological horror thriller. While I really liked their first movie, Talk to Me, this movie I think pales in comparison and made me slightly uncomfortable with the themes that it addresses. But if you are a fan of the gore, you might really want to check it out. I'll see you all in a fortnight, and until then, take care.